Welcome guys, if you're just joining me. You pull up right here. Hi Nori, welcome. So welcome to sunset at Stone Street. I was hoping the sky would be a little brighter, but we are still going to get to see some of the beautiful coloring in the sky when we come around. Welcome everybody. My name's Hillary. If you have any questions throughout the tour, please feel free to ask. I'm just going to take a leisurely drive here. We'll see some of the scenery and I'll talk about the farm. And I did some test driving earlier with the golf cart and it's a little loud, so please let me know if you want me to speak any louder as I go through. I'll drive nice and slow so that way hopefully the golf cart won't interfere with the audio too much. But please let me know if you guys can't hear me throughout. And we'll get started. So we are here on our nursery farm. The residents here now are our weanlings. These are our foals of 2020. The majority of these foals have been weaned. We've got a few that were born in May that are still with their dams. And the foals will stay on this farm when they're weaned. The mares will go on to a second mare facility that we have here in Lexington. And these guys are gearing up to move on to our third property, which is our Yearling Farm. That farm is cleared out now that the yearlings have either sold at auction or they've gone down to our training center in Ocala, Florida. They're now getting their first lessons in becoming racehorses. We've got one more sale left to go before we are done with our 2020 sale season. But we've had a great year so far. We had the Tappet Terrace Tango colt that topped the Keeneland September sale, sold for $2 million. In that same sale, we had a colt out of Team Pauline by Into Mischief, who sold for $1 million. We've been very fortunate with the success that we've had at the sales, as well as on the racetrack. Our Stone Street breds are performing very well. Just recently, we had Complexity come back to our return to the winner's circle. He won the Kelso Stakes, and he's going on to the Breeders' Cup. And while she is not a homebred, but Campanelli will also be going to the Breeders' Cup. She races in the Stone Street stables. She went overseas to Royal Ascot just like Lady Aurelia. And like Lady Aurelia, she is trained by Wesley Ward. And she won the Queen Mary Stakes, as well as the Pure Morning. And now she's going to take her shot at the Breeders' Cup here in November. We're looking forward to seeing her run. So here's what we're making our way towards. So I'll drive up here to our Merlot Barn. This is one of 5 barns that we have on this property, and all of the barns are named after wines. So we have Merlot, Chardonnay, Cabernet, Pinot Noir, and Zinfandel. We'll see several of them today. So the wine names are a nod to our founder, Mr. Jeff Stone Street Jackson, who had ties to the wine industry. He was a great force in the wine industry, as well as Barbara Benke, who is a figure in the wine industry currently. So Mr. Jackson is, he just has a very incredible story. He grew up in the Great Depression, and he put himself through law school and became very successful. And he had the means and the opportunity to purchase a small pear orchard that he then converted to a winery. Let me get up at this hill, sorry. I know the golf cart's gonna get loud here for a little bit. These are the rolling hills that the bluegrass is so famous for. So I pull up the top of this hill, I can slow down a little bit. So Mr. Jackson had the opportunity to purchase a small pear orchard. He then converted it into a winery, and he would grow a small crop of grapes each year. He would then sell to other local wineries. And he wasn't making his own wine for several years. There was one year where the sugar content in his grapes was higher than normal because of an increase in rainfall. And so other local wineries didn't want to purchase them for fear that they would change the flavors of their wines. So rather than letting those grapes go to waste, Mr. Jackson was a shrewd businessman. He noticed that there was a gap in the market for a a more affordable but still very high quality wine. And so he created the Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve Chardonnay, which is very popular here in America. It's won just about every award you can throw at a bottle of wine. And from there, he launched the Kendall Jackson Winery, and then on to the that became the Jackson Family Wines portfolio. We're heading that way now, which is now multiple wineries in several different countries. But Mr. Jackson, he always had a love of thoroughbred racing, and so he was very successful in his first passion project, which was the winery, so he was able to pursue a second. So he came into this industry in 2005. That's when he purchased this farm. He purchased a mare named Forest Music, became the first graded stakes winner in the Stone Street Stables. You can see our leaves are starting to turn here as well. And Forest Music would go on to produce McLean's Music, as well as Grade 3 winners, Electric Forest, Kentuckian, and most recently she had Uncle Chuck, became her latest graded stakes winner. And in 2007, Mr. Jackson purchased Curlin, who we just saw move over to the new Hillendale property. He was now a leading sire. While he was on the racetrack, Curlin was a Preakness Stakes winner. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic. He was Horse of the Year in 2007 and in 2008. And then in 2009, Mr. Jackson had his third straight Horse of the Year victor in Rachel Alexandra. So when it came time for Rachel to retire, he brought her back to the farm, and he had these two Horse of the Year winners. So he bred the two together. He was a big believer in the adage of breeding the best to the best. And the foal that they produced was named Jess's Dream in his honor. A dream that he had for this operation. And Barbara Benke, she fell in love with racing, going to the races with Mr. Jackson. And no, Mr. Jackson passed away, Becky. He passed away in 2011, shortly after he learned that Rachel was in foal and she was expecting a colt. Miss Benke took the helm of both the wine and the equine operations, and she's been steering both to new heights. So she would go to the races with Mr. Jackson, but he was very focused on racing colts. He didn't race a lot of fillies. So she started her own racing stable. She called Grace Stables, which stands for Girls Rule and Competently Endure. And Miss Benke only raced fillies, and she had several fillies that are now in our broodmare band. Peggy Jane, who is notably the dam of Gamine, is a dual Grade 1 winner, raced in Miss Benke's stable, as well as Hot Dixie Chick, is a Grade 1 winner. And she purchased our training center. We train all of our future racehorses, as well as racehorses for other clients. So some of our graduates include, of course, our champions like Good Magic and Lady Aurelia. We've also trained Bricks and Mortar for Mr. Clareman in Clarevick Stables, who was the Horse of the Year last year, as well as Rushing Fall, who races for E5 Racing, and Unique Bella. Here we go. So we're coming up on Rachel Alexandra's paddock. I'll pull over here for a second. We'll see if she wants to maybe come and say hello. Hi, Rachel. Out here with her paddock maids. And Rachel, like the weanlings on this farm, spends nearly 24/7 outdoors. So she will come up for a breakfast and for a lunch, and she'll be in the barn for a little bit. But the rest of the time she's out here in her paddock just enjoying life as a horse. Hi, Rachel. She's going to realize very quickly that I don't have any peppermints for her. Those are her favorite treat. Oh, don't do that. Rachel she's 14 this year. She's had two foals. So she had Jess's Dream, who's now standing at Ocala Stud, as well as Rachel's Valentina, who's active in our broodmare band. And Rachel's Valentina has had herself 3 foals. So she has a 2-year-old named Alejandro, she has a yearling filly by Pioneer of the Nile, and she has a Curlin filly who was born this year. We may see as we drive over by the Pinot Noir barn. So we'll bid Rachel adieu, get back on the golf cart. Rachel's got this nice big paddock for her to enjoy. The foals are out in big paddocks now as well. When they started out, they were in these kind of medium-sized paddocks. They grew and they matured, and now that the majority of them have been weaned, they're nice and big and able to go out into big paddocks together. And all of the foals in these barns were born around the same time, which is by design. So the mares, when they travel back to this farm later on in the year, they will stay in groups that they were sorted into on the Matriarchs and Maidens farm. So they're grouped up by their expected foaling dates. So we take the date she last visited the breeding shed, and you count forward the 11 months of the average equine gestation period. And we can estimate when she's going to have her foal for next year. So we put all the mares together that are due to foal around the same time. That way in 2021, when they have their foals, they'll all be born within about a month of each other. And what that allows us to do is to have them go out into these paddocks together. They're all in the same developmental stages. And they will stay in the groups that they're in now. You see, I'm trying to spy this group of foals here. All the way up on the top of the hill. And so Rachel is still breeding sound. She had surgery after she delivered Rachel's Valentina. And she's not currently in foal. But as I mentioned, she is still breeding sound. Let me see, there we go. I can get it to focus so you can see some of these nice colors here. Foals are all the way at the back of the field. May just be able to see them. So these guys right now are grouped up by their birth dates. So we have mixed groups of colts and fillies, and they'll stay in these groups until they transition to the Yearling Farm. At that point, they'll be sorted, separated colts and fillies. Right now, they're in these paddocks with the foals they've known all their lives. So it's just another added layer of comfort for them when we do start weaning. If they've been in these paddocks together, as long as they've known one another, been able to build up friendships and strong bonds in the herd. And additionally, to keep level of stress for weaning nice and low, we don't take the mares away at once. We do a gradual weaning. So we'll take a few pairs of mares away each time. And we'll leave a few mares behind to kind of act as guides or nannies for the foals. Keep them in their routine and give them a little bit of comfort. These are mares that they've met when they came out into these paddocks, so they've known those mares all their lives as well. A couple of foals out there. We don't stand any stallions on our farms. We do have stallions that we are affiliated with. So Curlin is one I mentioned, who raced in Stone Street Stables. And he stands over at Hillendale with a few other Stone Street Stables graduates, like Cantharos, McLean's Music, and Good Magic are all there. And Jess's Dream is down at Ocala Stud. And Union Jackson, who was Hot Dixie Chick's first foal, he's now standing at Sequel Stallions in New York. Pull off here for a second and get a nice view of the sky here. You can see these nice big paddocks with all the hills for the foals to run up and down. So they spend most of their time outside running up and down these hills, which allows them to build strong bones and muscle. It's going to help them when they get to the racetrack, that foundation of strength that they have. We really pride ourselves on letting our horses be horses. That's why they're out most of the time. The mares on our Matriarchs and Maidens farm are out almost 24/7. They only come up into the barn a few times a week. So they'll be fed and checked out in their paddocks. Yes, we do have forest music. So she is in foal for next year. I can tell you in the comments who she's in foal to. I'm blanking at the moment. I don't want to give you the wrong horse. So the mares on that Matriarchs and Maidens farm are out most of the time. These weanlings only come up into the barn briefly twice a day. And at the Yearling Farm, which is essentially empty at this point, but when the yearlings are in yearling sales prep, they will go out at night. We have this much cooler weather. They can avoid the sun. And that way we can avoid sun bleaching in their coats. So they'll go out at night and they'll come up into the barn during the day. I'll move on and we'll go around our last barn, visit the Cabernet Barn, see if anybody's close up and wants to say hello. Yes, so mares that retire from my broodmare band have a home with us for life. We have a group of retired mares that live over at that Matriarchs and Maidens farm. And mares that you may know in that band include Maggie Hawk, who's the dam of Fleet Alex. We've got quite a few gray foals this year. We have a few grays out of River's Prayer had a McLean's Music filly who is turning gray. River's Prayer herself is gray. We have another McLean's Music out of a mare named Ullapool who is gray. So when you have, when you're breeding a bay or a chestnut horse to a gray horse, you've got about a 50-50 chance of getting a gray. If you breed two grays together, it's about 75% that you'll get a gray. So gray is a dominant gene, and what it does is that it turns off all the other colors in the horse's coat over time. So they will slowly transition to gray. They'll be born whichever color they are genetically, bay or chestnut, and then they'll slowly turn gray over time. So we've seen a few of the leaves here. I'll come back next week. I'll do another tour so we can see more of the fall foliage. Yes, so horses that retire from our stable that don't go into our breeding program will go on to new vocations. So we'll bring them home. Typically they'll be gelded. They're mostly male horses. They'll have a letdown period so they can kind of relax and adjust to a little bit of a quieter routine. And then they'll go on to new vocations and they'll be trained in many different disciplines. It's one of the things that's so wonderful about thoroughbreds is they are so athletic that they succeed not only in racing, but they can go on to do show jumping, cross country, dressage. And new vocations adopts, I think it's over 400 racehorses a year out into new homes. They have a wonderful program. Let's see, we'll come around here. Do you all have any other questions as I go along? I should have told you all to pour a glass of Kendall Jackson before I started. Whichever variety it is that is your favorite. So Let me pull around here. We've got some nice pink colors off in the distance here. There we go. If you want to be on the lookout this weekend, we've got a filly racing in Stone Street Stables named Cantata. We should be running in the Frisette Stakes. Let me pull up over here. So this is the Cabernet Barn. This is where our youngest foals are. As you can see, we still have a few mares here. These were the foals that were born in May. Weaning typically occurs between 5 to 6 months of age. So some of these guys haven't hit that point just yet. So we've got Supreme in this paddock, as well as My Wandy's Girl. I know there was a gentleman who asked last week to see My Wandy's Girl, so I wanted to make sure I went over and visited with her. We've got a handful of people that live on the farm, primarily managers. Let's see. There's My Wandy's Girl is the chestnut here. And Supreme in the back is the bay. You can hear the Canadian geese here in the background. So let me go and walk around. We'll see this group of foals. So I mentioned we wean gradually. So we have a few mares that are still here with their foals. This is Bride Street and Samantha Nicole, I believe. So they'll stay for a little while longer before they'll be weaned as well. I'm here providing some guidance for these other foals. We have in the past, My Wandy's Girl actually was a mare that stayed behind with a field of weanlings. And she was their nanny for a little bit. And she was actually so sweet that she allowed the other foals to nurse off of her as well. She's got a very lovely temperament. She is one of several international champions that we have. So she was a champion in Puerto Rico. We also have Bounding, who's a champion in New Zealand. And Lady Aurelia was a Cartier Award winner, which is the UK equivalent of the Eclipse Awards. And Hillaby is a Canadian champion. A few others. So we've visited these foals, these May foals before. You can see just how much they've grown in such a short period of time. We walk down. So it would depend on the mare, Patricia. Oh, there they go. So each year we, they didn't like that. So each year we take the health and happiness of the mare into consideration. And if she needs to take a year off, then we'll do that for her. So just because she had a foal this year, she's not guaranteed to have one next year. Here's Flatter Colt, Countess Curlin. Let's see. Where's oh, there she is. Here's Terra Promessa's first foal. It's a filly by Into Mischief. Here's Samantha Nicole's Speightstown filly. There she is. Filly out of Bella Parenttown. Pianist. And the two mares are Bride Street, Samantha Nicole. The age of the foal being so late in the season, do you mean, so they all have that same January 1st birthday? So in January, they'll all be considered weanlings? I'm not sure what you mean, Patricia. You can have champions born in really any month. So Lady Aurelia was born in January, but there have been many a champion and Kentucky Derby winner born in May. So we're starting to lose the light here as the sun's going down. I'll hop back in the golf cart, get back to start. You guys have any other questions? So we save all of these virtual tours to our Facebook page. We're posting them on YouTube as well. And each week we update our virtual tour schedule on our website. So you're always able to look ahead and see what we'll be up to for the week. So next week I think I'll... Sorry, I'm running over some acorns. Sorry for the noise there, guys. So next time I'll take us around and we'll see some of the fall foliage that we have here. So some of our leaves have started to turn, but not quite all of them. I think if I give it another few days, we'll get some more red leaves. Ooh, speaking of red. See, isn't that pretty? So hopefully that means we're gonna have some nice weather for tomorrow. That old adage of red sky at night, sailor's delight. Let's get some of the ambiance here. Do you all have any other questions before I head back? Has the audio been okay for you all? Been watching to see if people can hear me. Well, I've never heard Shepherd's Delight. Maybe I'll start using that. We're a bit closer to shepherds than we are sailors. So I'll turn around up here. You had any questions that I didn't get to or you couldn't think of at the time, you can send us a message, leave a comment on this post. You guys can hear just fine? Oh, good. Now it's getting nice and dark here. So we'll do our tour, our fall leaves tour on Wednesday of next week. And then we'll have a few other more educational tours before we wrap up for the year. Hope you guys have enjoyed this tour and that you've enjoyed all of the virtual tours. Like I mentioned, we save them to our Facebook page. So we've got a playlist that you can go through, see any of the ones that you missed. You can visit our YouTube channel as well, where we have them saved. So we leave the fly mask on at night. We're getting close to the point in the year where they're not really necessary anymore, so they'll come off here pretty shortly. Just a added precaution for the mares. So yeah, the fly masks were the masks that you saw the mares wearing, Samantha and Bride Street. Really just protects their eyes from any kind of flies or nagging insects. So glad the sunset turned out for you guys. So I'll pull off here and go ahead and end for the evening. All right, now I'm safely off the road. I mentioned if you had any other questions I didn't get to, you can send us a message, leave a comment, and I'll be able to respond and answer your questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll see you all in the next one.